to move to our federal champion of the year. And really, our federal champion needs no introduction, but he's going to get one anyway. So we are so delighted to present our Federal Champion of the Year award to Director Rohit Chopra, who's the third director of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. I received a very short bio, which shares that Director Chopra led the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau from 2021 to 2025 and served as a commissioner to the Federal Trade Commission from 2018 to 2021. In these roles, he led a slew of efforts to reform practices across the economy that harm consumers and businesses. His work helped to eliminate tens of billions of dollars in junk fees, improve customer service, and ensure accountability for Wall Street, big tech, and other dominant firms in the economy. I will say briefly that slew is doing a lot of heavy lifting in that bio. If you've known anything about Director Chopra, under his leadership, the CFPB won billions of dollars for consumers, developed important guidance, critical enforcement actions, and research into emerging issues and markets. I had the pleasure of connecting with the CFPB, particularly around the issue of medical debt, which I know Director Chopra is passionate about, and he spearheaded issues at the Bureau and coordinated with other agencies to try to ensure that no one had their credit ruined or their debt mount because they or a loved one fell ill. We are so lucky to have had his leadership over the past few years at the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, and we're so happy to recognize his extraordinary efforts with this Federal Champion of the Year award. He's going to make a few remarks, and there'll be a little bit of time for Q&A as well. Yes, no, I can be Vanna White.
Well, thank you, Marceline, and thanks to all of the staff and team and supporters of Economic Action. Also, big shout out to all the legislators who have joined today, because you all need to be put to work. There is so much that is happening in terms of decay and disarray in Washington right now. There was a campaign, which actually I agreed with this, that the focus needed to be on lowering costs on the rent, on loans, on food, on electricity, and what have we seen every single day is prices have gone up and up and up. We used to talk quite a bit about people being on a treadmill of debt. You all have seen the fights against predatory lending, against student loan companies, against high-cost auto lenders. We saw what happened when predatory lending infected the economy. And here, even in Maryland, which, by the way, was not even hit nearly as bad as other parts of the country, the destruction from subprime mortgage lending destroyed trillions of dollars of wealth across the country. I hope all of you always remember, when you see the stories of Prince George's County especially, since the 1960s, there was a dramatic closure of the racial wealth gap because of housing. It was steady. There was more and more wealth built, more and more reversing of the history of redlining. But within 2 years, over 30 years of gains disappeared. That's because there was an epidemic of predatory mortgage lending. So I just hope that we are constantly keeping in mind how much we have to push back when these things start to infect all of our communities. So let me just say a couple words, Marceline, about the things I hope that Maryland really becomes fixated on. And these are really things that I know Marceline has been fixated on already. but it's important for us to think about how we're going to do it together. So the first thing I just want to talk briefly about is these crazy high electricity bills. We are seeing more and more people facing this shock of a bill every day. And what is actually happening, please don't forget this, they then start having to sacrifice on other items. And then if they fall behind, it enters into this loop of debt collection, credit reporting, and sometimes even lawsuits. And here's what I see to the delegates and everything. Here's what I'm seeing in counties and cities and states. They are handing out giant tax incentives to big data centers that employ 2 or 3 people day to day, and they are taxing the electricity grid so much. And in places like Virginia and other states, it is the rest of ratepayers that are subsidizing Mark Zuckerberg and these big tech companies. And it is very important that you quickly respond to how these utilities are passing on costs. I love this private jet exclusion. And the reason why this is so important, these utilities are compensated based on their costs. They get a return on their investment. But when they throw away money on lobbying and other expenditures like this, who pays for it? The rest of us. So I just want to commend you again for pushing on this, because there is so much more to do when it comes to these electricity bills. So I hope that each of us can really talk about this with people, no matter who they voted for, no matter if they've ever voted in the past. It is something that is on the minds of more and more people. Let me also add on the issue of housing. So everyone realizes that the cost of housing is out of control. We have to be on the lookout for people who think that deregulation is the answer. Study after study has shown that deregulation, when it comes to housing, yeah, maybe there's places where you can streamline the process, where you can get permits or build more quickly. But what we often see with some of this deregulation, guess what types of homes end up being built? Not homes for families just starting out, not homes for people who are just out of college, not homes for seniors who are trying to have an affordable place. Most of that new market rate housing from deregulation only serves those at the top. So you all need to come up with more ideas to be able to make sure that homes not just are built, but they are not squatted on by investors who scoop up all of the new properties being built to block people from buying housing. That means across the country, people have to start looking, should we be taxing foreign investors buying up farmland and housing? Should we be putting a closer eye on all of the private equity funds and others who are buying up this housing? So you have to make sure that you are sharing with everybody. And I will say this, it used to be just a few metro areas across the country. Look at the map of Maryland, rural counties, suburban counties, urban counties. Everyone is fed up with their high rent and high cost of housing. And by the way, just because we're focused on the cost of housing, do not forget about the sometimes invisible cries for help from people who are facing foreclosure. Foreclosure is something that is a devastation for an individual, for their neighborhood, and we are seeing signs of foreclosures and evictions continue to tick up. We are clearly in an economy that is slowing down. Unemployment is ticking up, and there are places where people are losing their homes, and we need to make sure that these mortgage servicers are not putting people into foreclosure illegally like they did years ago. Let me just, it's so important that we continue really the ongoing fight on lending. Remember, on monthly bills, we talk about going into the grocery store, the high price of eggs, the high price of food. Don't forget the amount of money people are paying every month just in interest is through the roof. Last year, I don't know if this number is exactly right, I think Americans paid $120 billion just in interest and fees on their credit cards. Credit cards are up to 24, 25, 26%. And you know what's interesting? The Fed has started to cut interest rates. Those credit card rates have not gone down. The auto loans that we see being peddled to people, 13, 14%. This is the type of cost that is really squeezing and draining people. And then to even think about the mortgage rates they are facing, it just is putting the American dream of housing out of reach. In Maryland, I checked this, there are fewer people, significantly fewer people now under 30 buying homes compared to people over 70. There is a total foreclosure of spirit of being able to purchase a home. So I think that when it comes to these loan products, you need to continue to be on the hunt for products that pretend they are not loans. But if it looks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it is one. So keep an eye, and I know big lobbying interests from this workplace payday loan industry. They brand themselves as earned wage access. They have flooded Annapolis and other state capitals to wiggle their way in and to sidestep long-standing law. And the task is much more important, as now with the CFPB, a Justice Department, rather than handing out accountability, they are handing out pardons for politically connected companies. So this is something that has got to be high on the agenda here in Maryland and around the country. So I don't really care. I know you can feel beleaguered by the news. Don't forget, you have a state attorney general, you have a state utility commission, a state insurance commission, and state officials who need to be pushed. You just heard from the delegate, go to his office, but go to the offices of people who you don't have an invitation from. Knock on their door and tell them what is happening and how we need to fight. So I know that a lot of people are sulking these days, but the time for sulking is over. And the time really to saddle up and fight is now. So remember, keep going, keep fighting, and don't ever surrender. So thank you so much for having me today.
Director Chopra is going to, way too short. Director Chopra is going to take a few questions as well from the audience after that powerful speech, if there are consumer protection issues or other issues you want to raise. We have a mic up here, and I can also just repeat them back if I can hear it. Yes, Chuck.
Many of the issues you worked on at the Bureau, I think consumers will now be facing a regulatory desert where there's hardly any oversight. So we have to push our state regulators to do better. But do you have any thoughts about what we're going to do about things like the digital payment apps when there's really no federal supervision of these companies?
Yeah, I don't want to delude you into thinking that states can cover it all. But that doesn't mean states should watch as it all gets really permeated into our society. Chuck asked about these digital payment apps. Many of you are aware that all of us kind of use, whether you it's Venmo or Cash App, we have seen so much fraud being perpetrated, the misuse of our personal data, and here's why we should really be worried about it. The more and more information they have about us and about our payments, that's what's going to create a world of personalized pricing. You've already started to probably see this or notice this, that you see a different price when you go on a website for a particular product, and then you look on your phone and maybe it's different. You're starting to see a world, and I don't know if you followed this controversy involving Delta Airlines. They want to be able to offer dynamic, personalized pricing for flights. That means that if they know you have to get to a funeral quickly, or you need to go to a college or job interview, that they can gouge you. We should live in a world with price tags, and the more and more they know about our payments, the more and more they will target prices to us individually. And I personally think states should just ban that immediately. So it's not going to fix everything, but the problems are going to come, and states really need to draw the line. You know, I wish I actually knew more about some of the statistics locally. I can tell you what we've seen in cities and counties across the country. We see everything from predatory home sales. I think you've seen these flyers sometimes in neighborhoods, cash for homes, targeting older people, but also in a world with generative AI, voice cloning, and even video, be able to impersonate someone's face. Individuals who are older adults are going to be the ones getting the calls from people who sound like their child or grandchild, asking them to turn over money. And we have allowed, improperly, banks to simply turn a blind eye when older adults are sending large wire transfers, large cash transactions, and what happens afterward, it is just a bunch of finger pointing. So I think the list, I personally worry about those if we do reach a recession, if there is a stock market correction, dramatic downturn, a lot of people who do have a nest egg may not find much they have left. And so they will be targeted for certain types of home equity products, reverse mortgage products, and all sorts of other schemes. So I would encourage wherever you have enforcement powers or where you ever have the ability to really crack down, it becomes so tempting for state agencies to do a consumer education campaign and declare victory. In the world we live in, that is really the wrong course. You have to be able to confront powerful people who are exploiting people here in Maryland and really do something about it. All right, well, I so appreciate this, and again, I hope each of you today uses the moments. I think there's sessions actually on utilities, on housing, and on debt. Come up with big ideas and really work with Marceline and Economic Action to help see them into reality. So thank you again, and thanks for being here.